I'm wondering whether I should tell a close friend that he shouldn't marry his fiancée. I am 30. I have known my friend, we'll call him Mark, also 30, since college. We're very close and we hang out together pretty regularly. Mark has been with his fiancée, let us call her Laura, since grad school. That's about 6 to 7 years. Mark and Laura have been engaged for 2 years and they will be married in a month. I know, not much time here. For the first few years of the relationship, I had zero problems with Laura. She seemed a bit shy and reserved, which is unusual for our group of friends, but otherwise she seemed like a fine partner for Mark. Indeed, my only reservation was actually that Mark, having a strong personality and being an overly rational, intellectual, argumentative person, sometimes seemed to run roughshod over Laura. Over the last 2 or 3 years, Laura has opened up a bit more, and initially that was really great. My girlfriend Julie and Laura became closer and started hanging out, and the 4 of us would go out regularly, either just us or with other friends. It was actually pretty great. Recently, however, we have started noticing that there are some key issues with their relationship that make us and other friends actually wonder whether they should be together at all. Now that we know Laura better, we've realized that she's insanely insecure and anxious. She is constantly complaining about minor things about the wedding, including his parents' small requests. And even the nice things they do for her, we've watched them argue about pretty personal stuff, and she is pretty happy to air their dirty laundry and complain incessantly about things that it's clear he'd rather discuss in private. She also has been somewhat cruel and unfair to him in our presence. Finally, and here's the key thing, they seem to have a pretty fundamental disagreement about a key issue in their relationship. Think of something as fundamental as whether or not to have kids. With him being in the firm,
Yes, I want to do this, and I need a partner who will at least consider it.
camp, and her being in the
I'm saying I'll consider it, but I'm pretty sure I'm ultimately going to not want to do this, and that you're kind of asshole for asking me to do it in the first place.
The argument issue is fairly specific, and so I don't want to give more details for fear of identifying them. In addition, they've been arguing seemingly nonstop for what seems like over a year, with Laura regularly complaining to my girlfriend that she's miserable, anxious, stressed, etc. Because of various relationship issues, Mark is not a complainer, but we know that he is similarly not happy. These are issues that, in our mind, are part of Mark's personality that will not change, and Laura knows they will not change. For instance, Mark has long-term, close female friends whose friendship he prioritizes highly. Laura thinks that their interactions are inappropriate and that he puts their needs above hers. But Mark has been clear that his interactions with them will not change. Mark also has a difficult, time-consuming career and doesn't have much time to do household chores or spend time alone with Laura. Again, this is not something that will not change anytime soon. Another big issue is that Laura believes that some of Mark's fundamental values have changed over the course of their relationship, things that she admired and found attractive about him initially and that now she doesn't like very much. My girlfriend and I have been seeing these issues for some time, and they came to a head recently, when we both sort of told them that they should think about postponing the wedding. They acknowledged that they had both thought about it and said that they had a good, long talk and have decided that they wanted to go ahead with it. They said that they'd discussed all and talked him through and come to a consensus. We trusted that they had and sort of shrugged our shoulders. It may be worth noting that although Mark was able to discuss this in a level-headed way, Laura's response was to sort of withdraw for a few weeks and stop talking to us or hanging out with us, and to make it clear to our other friends that she was doing this because we didn't support their marriage. She later acknowledged that the reason she did this was because she felt that there was some truth to what we were saying, and hanging out with us upset her because it brought those feelings up again when she was trying to get over them. Just this weekend, we saw them argue again, including about that fundamental question about I noted before, and it was clear that they are still in very different places, still unhappy, and still arguing constantly. It was also clear and upsetting that Laura was basically including us in the argument so she could badmouth Mark and try to get us on her side. Not only was it not working because we think that he's more in the right than she is, but it was also incredibly callous and hurtful to Mark, and she just didn't seem to care. We've gotten to the point where it's actually hard to spend time with Laura. My girlfriend doesn't like her at all. I'm fine spending time with her, but really feel that they are not a good match and that they are just going to make each other unhappy at the very least. I feel they need to postpone this wedding until they actually have come to a place where they derive happiness from the relationship as opposed to this constant fighting about things large and small. The question is, should I talk to Mark about this? I've already shared some of what I'm thinking and been told that everything is fine, but this time I might be a little more open and will also tell him that I'm happy to handle some of the logistical post-wedding canceling stuff, such as calling people, whatever, if that's something that's waiting on him. TLDR, I don't think that my friend should marry his fiancée. Should I tell him? Advice needed?
Here are some relevant comments.
This was in part an attempt to release or vent, so I stopped wanting to say something to him. Because I, like you, don't think anything will change, and that at this point I'm, as someone else put it, meddling. But I'm not sure what you mean by right for your friendship. I think that he'd take it well, honestly. He's extraordinarily reasonable to a fault. My concern isn't that he'll resent me. It's that Laura would. And if he marries her, she'd be upset or bitter about me saying something, and it would diminish our friendship, because who wants to hang with their significant other? Hates? I'm in his corner no matter what he chooses, really, and I'm happy to keep hanging with them forever and just avoiding touchy subjects to minimize drama. Fair point, though I do feel like the whole
Ugh, we've done all this planning. We've put all this money down.
is a major part of why they decided not to postpone. Even though they are acknowledging that they have major issues to work on, they're basically betting that they can work things out eventually and that they don't want to replan a wedding. at that point. So if the logistical issues are forcing the timeline, I would want to remove those from the equation to the extent possible. Now, I may not actually say anything because the overall consensus seems to be that I've said my piece and that he's made his choice. But this is what I will quietly think to myself. If we do decide to have this conversation, asking questions does seem like a good component, much better than just lecturing him. Thanks. To clarify, I didn't mean to suggest that I took issue with her wanting space. I just wanted to provide additional facts regarding the potential fallout, i.e. she will not want to hang with us and may complain about us to our other friends if we say anything, which is irrelevant consideration when giving advice. The difficult piece there is that their fundamental disagreement is something that Julie and I have experience with and have offered to help with, which they've taken us up on, so perhaps we've put ourselves in a position to be present for discussions. The perhaps should happen in private. We will consider maybe setting out a stricter boundary on that in the future. Our priority is certainly for him to know we're here for him. It certainly may be worth thinking about whether our motivation is tinged, to say the least, by a selfish desire to feel better, vent, get it out of our systems. If so, you're right that we need to not do it.
Hello, I am the Julie in question. I would add this to what my love had already said. While we have sort of told them they should think about postponing the wedding, that was in a very light-handed way, hoping to spark a conversation, and took place almost a year ago, long before lots of new and troubling information arose. If we were to have the conversation now, it would be far clearer, far more detailed, and include a lot of things that we didn't know at that time. In other words, the first conversation was,
Have you guys talked about postponing the wedding?
and this one would be,
Do not marry this woman. She is awful. She doesn't even like you. You're unhappy. And it's only going to get worse.
perhaps this is a rationalization, but I truly believe that he does not know that we think that this wedding is a bad idea, and he definitely does not know that we actively dislike his fiancée. I frankly struggle to see how we will be able to have the kind of friendship we used to have with Mark if they go through with it. That's not a threat. It's her or us. It's just reality. As my love had said, that I cannot stand Laura for more than a few minutes at a time. I cannot help but take everything she says in the most negative possible light, seeing every comment as confirmation of my bad opinion of her, and I hate the way she treats him. I don't know if I'll be able to treat her with the kind of respect and kindness that is required of even having a decent relationship with her husband. I can already see myself avoiding spending time with them as a result. Even conversations that have nothing to do with this are tinged by awkwardness, not just on our end, but on theirs, because they know that we see the problems, even if they don't know how upset we are by them. Ultimately, I'm leaning away from saying something. I think that there's such a small likelihood of a good result like him calling off the wedding, and such a high likelihood of a bad result like she comes to hate us, and it dooms our relationship with him and or causes her to badmouth us to mutual friends, that I think it's a bad idea. As a side note, I don't put any weight on the
Let them make their own decisions.
responses here because that's so obvious it's not worth worrying about. Of course they get to make their own decision. We're not going to actively try and stop the marriage if they go through with it. The question is whether what we have to say should be involved in that decision or not, because we love him and we have different perspective on it that he doesn't.
I think worrying about my friend's long-term well-being is a worthy subject of my time. To be honest, constant meddling seems quite an overstatement. One conversation a year ago and considering another seems constant to you? Julie and I are both leaning towards the he's made his choice, nothing we say will change that. Let us just try our best to be happy for them choice. It's just a comment on the method of delivery of what is admittedly sound advice. I think I agree that saying something may make it very difficult for him to come to us in the future and is not something we want. And you're right. People will marry ace-holes. I guess I was just hoping that my friends would marry a-holes who loved them or made them happy even if they were assholes to everyone else. But you're right that I can't wave a magic wand to make that happen. Thanks for taking time to share your thoughts on this. I'm definitely going to think about this. Also, just FYI, I'm a girl. Julie and I together discussed whether we should sort of crowdsource some advice on our next step. So she's been following the thread from the beginning and wanted to drop her 2 cents. Not sure why that's so dramatic, really. I am not sure where I suggested that she was being a beach to us. If I did, that was unintentional. As for the remainder of your comment, I will respectfully disagree at the risk of sounding incredibly conceited. We have been told on multiple occasions by various parties that we're pretty good friends. And the level of trust placed in us would seem to confirm it. Even to this day, Julie and I remain close enough with Mark and Laura to be asked for wedding relationship advice regularly. I realize that given the constraints necessary in maintaining people's privacy and not getting into gory details, we can certainly come off as the bad guys here. And I have taken all the comments saying that we are meddling and that we need to let it go. Quote, seriously, the jump to
You don't sound pleasant to be around.
seems odd and unsupported by the facts. But if that's how you feel, I thank you for sharing your perspective. Edit. Should also clarify that we didn't just ask Mark if he'd consider postponing the wedding. That was a conversation that has involved all of us. She's aware of our earlier concerns and, as I noted, seems to agree that they're valid but does not want to address them. I actually don't think that we disagree. As I mentioned in a few other comments, my inkling was that we really shouldn't say anything more and that we have, as many have said our piece, and anything more would be unwelcome meddling.
Update 5 months later.
So Julie and I took the advice of most people here and kept our mouths shut about our feelings about Laura. We were enthusiastic at the wedding and went out of our way to be gracious and kind to her in the run-up to it and after the wedding went off without a hitch. And we thought that maybe they'd turned over a new leaf, and after the stress of the wedding was removed, she'd be a better partner to him. Sadly, the opposite happened. I guess I should start by explaining that the key disagreement they had prior to marriage was about having an open relationship. He was very much in the
I want to at least explore this.
Camp, and she seemed very reluctant and kind of pissed that he was asking her to consider this in the first place. Shortly before the wedding, however, she started to develop an interest in another man, and all of a sudden her doubts were all but gone. Mark was happy and excited for her, and things appeared to be going better. Unfortunately, that didn't last. Over the last few months, Mark and Laura have had increasingly bad fights. And pretty much every time we asked how things were going, he would just respond with,
Not good.
whenever we hung out, she did increasingly annoying things like sulking if we weren't doing an activity she liked, leaving events without even saying goodbye, complaining that we were excluding her from things because we failed to somehow read her mind and determine that she wanted to do something other than what we were doing, etc. We had a talk with Mark about this, and he sort of agreed that she was being ridiculous in several ways, that we had a right to be upset with her attitude, and said that maybe we should take a break from hanging out with her. We were fine with this, but it was pretty annoying that she was basically making him choose between spending time with us and with her. A few weeks after that conversation, he called us to tell us they're getting a divorce. We were pretty shocked, but here's the skinny. Shortly after they returned from their honeymoon, Laura went to see her, let's call him boyfriend. She came back sad and upset and told Mark that the guy had broken things off, presumably because he felt differently about the relationship now that she was married. He empathized and then comforted her. A few days later, he noticed that she was acting a little weird, checked her email, and he realized that the breakup was a lie. Essentially, boyfriend had told her they could only keep seeing each other if no one else, including Mark, knew about it. Instead of breaking it off, having a conversation with Mark about it or anything else sensible, she decided to lie to her husband so she could have an affair. And I call it an affair because even in an open relationship, lying under these circumstances definitely makes it cheating in my book. He, of course, felt incredibly hurt and betrayed, but instead of kicking her to the curb, like I would have, he talked to her and to the guy to explain that this was unacceptable and uncool, but told him that he was fine allowing the relationship to continue. The only thing he asked was that going forward, she refrained from sharing certain details of their relationship, Mark and Laura's, with the boyfriend. Reasonable request? No? Apparently not to her. A few months later, he finds out that she set up a separate email account and was using it to communicate with the boyfriend about precisely the kinds of things Mark had asked her not to share with him. She had left the account open and had previously told him that he was free to check her email and phone as a way to regain trust after the first fuck-up. She was also telling the boyfriend that she was thinking about a divorce because things were so terrible with Mark. Now again, this is where I would have kicked her the fuck out. Instead, Mark takes a few days to cool off away from her, comes back and tells her that she needs to break up with the boyfriend and focus on fixing their relationship through therapy and closing off any other potential romantic partners. She is initially very apologetic and seems to want to work on things. But of course, after a few days, she starts throwing hissy fits because she didn't know it was that big a deal to him. And he won't sleep in the same room as her, which to her means that he's not really trying to fix it. Keep in mind that it's been less than 2 weeks since he found out that she had betrayed him for the second time in less than 4 months. He tells her he needs time. At this point, he's seriously thinking about divorce, but doesn't want to give up on the marriage considering that it's been less than 6 months. And then he comes home from hanging out with us for the evening. She comes home a bit later and just basically tells him that she just made out with some guy from her gym she'd been hanging out with. Essentially, she decided that things weren't going to work anyway, and she chose the most childish and hurtful way she could to end it. So now they're getting divorced. I'm not even sure why I'm posting this, mostly because I wanted to vent to strangers about how horrible this woman is, and I can't do it in real life. He's handling this extremely well and being super gracious and mature about it. And to his credit, he isn't really into shit-talking her, though she deserves it, and everyone he's told essentially reacts with some variation of,
Well, I guess now I can tell you all the things I never liked about her.
I, on the other hand, want to punt her into next week. So there that is. Thanks again for all the original comments, the helpful ones and the not so helpful ones. It's always kind of cathartic to put this out into the ether and get it out of my head. TLDR, Laura cheated on Mark multiple times in the last 4 months because she is a garbage person. They are getting divorced. Friends who know her are uniformly relieved, though sad for him. Her clear reluctance about the open relationship idea was one of the key reasons we thought they should have postponed the wedding in the first place. To his credit, he is still very much philosophically in the
I want an open relationship.
camp. He knows that it can work as long as your partner is not a dishonest, disloyal douche nozzle. Hopefully he will find someone who feels the same way and knows how to handle it. But she genuinely did want to do it as soon as she found someone she was interested in. I think maybe this is hard to explain to a monogamous person, but this isn't about being good enough. I'm really sorry that you went through this and were hurt by it, but non-monogamous people are no less in love with their partners than the monogamous ones, nor any less happy with them. They are no less good. Non-monogamy is just a different choice or type of relationship. One person saying that they'd like an open relationship does not equal them saying that they don't love their partner or that their partner is not good enough. I'm sure that it didn't make her feel very good, and I felt for her at the time, but the solution then isn't to cheat, it's to break up. I don't think that it's a bad thing for someone to tell you what their deal breakers are. People are entitled to want certain things out of their relationships and to ask for them outright. The other person has the option of leaving or staying, but if they choose to stay, this doesn't give them the right to betray the other person's trust as some sort of revenge. I should clarify. That's not what I think have happened here. I think that she genuinely wanted to be with this other guy, was not in love with Mark anymore, and the cheating was just a way to fully sabotage the relationship so she could end it. That's the part I just don't get. Like, if you're unhappy, leave. If you don't love the person or share their values, leave. No one will blame you if you fall in love with someone else or if you stop loving the person you're with. Just don't lie repeatedly and break someone's trust. It's not that hard, I don't think. She should have stood firm on what she wanted. I think, honestly, she may have been confused about what she wanted, though. As someone mentioned earlier, it's possible that she started developing feelings attraction to someone else, and instead of accurately reading that as,
"Oh, I'm not in love with my partner anymore,"
she thought that it could fit into the whole open relationship thing. But then, because she clearly wasn't in love with Mark anymore, she prioritized the other relationship and betrayed Mark's trust repeatedly instead of just calling it quits when she should have. I think that karma will start pretty soon. When she realizes how much life sucks when your income decreases to about 1/4 of what you're used to, and 90% of your former friends think that you're a terrible person. I didn't mean to imply that non-monogamy was at all the culprit. Sorry if I was unclear. I think given my last update and this one, this is not an unreasonable conclusion if you fill in some blanks. I won't ask you to trust me when I say that over the last few months, it has become clear to me, because I've caught Laura in multiple lies, omissions, truth manipulations, that her previous complaints about Mark and her seeming anxiety, stress were at best wildly exaggerated, and at worst, clear attempts to make herself look like a victim to get sympathy from others. She has lost friends over this. Her best friend, maid of honor, almost dropped out of the wedding in ways wholly unrelated to her relationship. Also, I don't think that Mark forced her into anything. He was clear that he wanted a relationship where this was at least a possibility. And she said that it was. I agree that her clear reluctance should have been a huge red flag, and in my opinion, enough to call it off. But he chose to take her word for it, particularly because she was so eager, enthusiastic about the enterprise after she found someone that she liked. Also, not that it's particularly necessary to the story, she has had at least 3 separate partners that I know about, and he had none. He was happy for her and supportive of her relationships, as long as they weren't outright betrayals of his trust. He is also treating her very kindly even now, in terms of logistics and splitting assets, and doesn't want his friends to badmouth her or be rude to her. I understand that you think he is toxic and cruel, and nothing I say over the internet is likely to convince you otherwise, but I will just have to disagree. I am not painting Mark in a perfect light, and I do not hate his wife. I liked her at the beginning until I witnessed her doing some really shitty stuff to him. Like I said, when I first met her, I actually felt kind of protective of her because she seemed like such a wallflower. Over time, my feelings changed as a result of her actions, and shortly after that, we stopped hanging out entirely. I really, really do not like her. If that makes me a crappy person, so be it. He was happy and supportive of her until she, for no reason, lied and betrayed his trust. He wasn't interested in anyone at the time and was quite busy at work, so he was happy for her, but not actively seeking a relationship. I know that I am biased, but they are both very attractive and smart. And I'm pretty sure had he wanted to, he would have had volunteers. Hell, I know a couple of women who expressed interest in him to me and would likely have been very much on board if he expressed reciprocal interest. Laura gets shit because she lied and cheated. Simple. Just out of curiosity, if someone says, hey, one key thing I need in this relationship is I want to insert socially acceptable thing in a relationship, like, for instance, having kids. Whoever I am with needs to be okay with that isn't the correct response if you don't want kids. To say, I love you, but I don't want that, so this isn't going to work. My point isn't that she was wrong for not wanting an open relationship. It's that she handled it in the worst possible way. If that's what she wanted. If she'd said, this is not what I want, I am hurt that you've asked for it, it makes me feel like I'm not good enough, so I think that we should call it off. Then that would have been entirely reasonable to me. The cheating was the lying, repeatedly. He had no problems with her seeing other people. I think the elemental issue with many responses to my post is that people don't understand the fundamental premise of an open relationship. Lying to your partner is not acceptable in any kind of relationship, even one where you are allowed to see other people. Suppose I was dating you and said, you can have sex with someone else, but not without a C, and you not only had unsafe sex, but also lied to me about it. Is your position that because I was okay with the sex, I should be okay with you breaking a rule we both agreed on and okay with you lying about it? Anything is acceptable in a relationship if the 2 people in that relationship agree to it. If you're in a BDSM relationship and your partner beats you because you both enjoy it, that is acceptable when it wouldn't be acceptable in other contexts. My point is precisely that. People tend to be more sympathetic when the source of disagreement is something that they themselves can empathize with. I think that if someone wanted kids and the other person didn't, the generally accepted solution would be for the person who didn't to say so out loud and walk away. No one would say, well, it's ridiculous of him to demand kids and make that a deal breaker. I think there should be a similar attitude for anything else that is a deal breaker. If I am honest and open with you about what I want out of a relationship, you have the opportunity to evaluate whether that's consistent with your values and decide whether you want to continue the relationship or not. No one is doing anything wrong up until one person lies, betrays someone else's trust. I think of it more as, if you're not interested in whipping, we can't get married. That's not victimizing, that is giving the person a choice. No one is forcing her to get married. She gets to choose. At that point, it is in her hands to say, nope, not interested. Let's not get married. If it had been me, I would have read her reluctance as a no and broken it off myself. Instead, he chose to take her at her word that she was willing to try it. Not what I would have done. But I don't think it's victimization to say that, is to deny her agency. He didn't ask her this out of the blue. This is a core part of who he believes he is and what he thinks the right way to live your life. He didn't wake up one day and say,
I'm not happy with just you anymore. I want to see other people.
He basically said this was something that really mattered to him and was a key thing about his life. Philosophy, and asked if she was on board. She was free to say no and walk away. She didn't because she apparently wanted it too, at least after she found someone she was interested in. I don't think what happened was her getting revenge on him for forcing her into an open relationship. I think that she was unhappy with the relationship for a variety of reasons and essentially sabotaged it by lying to him and betraying him multiple times. This is a very difficult view for me to understand. Just because I am happy and okay with you having relationships with others doesn't mean I am okay with you lying to me about it or betraying my trust. I think that the very basis of the whole project is absolute complete trust. I may be comfortable with you fugging someone, but not with you holding hands with them under that arrangement. Zegs is fine, but holding hands is cheating. Cheating is whatever we both agreed is. And in this case, if you lie to me and say you are not doing X and then you go and do X, that to me is cheating.